Hi everyone, my name is Davis, and today I'm going to talk about the strategies to not only pitch but get high-paying Airbnb cleaning clients. So I built my Airbnb cleaning business over the past 4.5 years to over 7 figures in revenue, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the psychology behind the sales process and go through some of the strategies you can use to get those high-paying Airbnb cleaning clients. So the reality is that a vast majority of those Airbnb cleaning customers want to pay higher rates. They don't want to pay bottom of the barrel rates because they know that if they do that, they're going to get poor quality work. Side note, the customers who do want to pay low rates, they're probably customers that you want to avoid because they don't care about quality, and that's going to trickle down to you. Just going to be a huge pain in the butt that you're not going to want to deal with. But Airbnb cleaning is a completely different beast than residential and commercial. You got to make sure that you are there on time. You are held to a higher standard than residential or commercial because if the guest finds hair in the bathroom, that's a much bigger deal in an Airbnb than it is in a residential unit. And you got to be consistent. So you got to have plans in place if somebody calls off, if somebody's not available, if you don't have enough staff, if a bunch of units are same day turnovers. So it's much harder to execute it on. And good clients want to pay more because they know that usually higher priced cleanings correlate to higher quality. And so today we're going to talk about that. So the first thing you want to think about, and this applies by the way to any business, is who is my ideal customer? So I'll tell you what it is for Turned. Our ideal customer, they're Airbnb or vacation rental property managers between 3 and 5 units. And the reason we picked that customer profile is because if they have between 3 and 5 units, generally they're too big to work with an individual cleaner. Like they can't have one person that they contract with to do all of those cleanings, especially if a lot of them have same day turnovers. But they're not so big that they would hold an undue amount of influence over us in negotiations on price. So pick your ideal customer and develop your needs around serving that specific customer. So for us, we know that these property managers, above price, of course they care about price, but above price, they care about consistency and reliability, and they care about quality, and they care about communication. So if the guest damages his unit, they want to know that we're going to report it if we see that, because the cleaning team, in their view, is their eyes and ears. So I've developed, at least for Turned, all of our messaging around serving that specific customer. There are other customer archetypes too. For example, you could go after individual homeowners. Airbnb, either the whole place or just a unit, but it's like a single unit host. And the way I would think about serving that particular customer is you probably want to design your service more around customization, because a lot of times they have unique things that they want done in the property. Maybe they have like weird quirks to the house or things like that, and your pitch to them is going to be more like, well, we can, customize their service to your needs. I'll caution you do that within reason, because you don't want to have 50 different customers with 50 different expectations. You want to put rules around that, but that's one way you could appeal to that kind of customer. So the first thing, again, the recap, is to know who your target customer is and know what their needs are. And then when you're talking to them on the sales phone call, make sure that you're pressing the pain button. And if you can do that, the pricing discussion's going to be an afterthought. They're going to already want to work with you. And then as long as you give them a price that's within the realm of planet Earth, it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so once you feel like you've got a good understanding of your target customer and what their needs are, the next thing you're going to want to do is get a prospect on the phone and ask open-ended, exploratory questions. So the first thing that I usually do on a phone call with a customer after our initial introductions, like, hey, I'm Davis, your name is John, whatever, before I even tell them anything about our business. Maybe they know a thing or two from researching us online, whatever, but before I go into anything, I just ask open-ended exploratory questions and I let them do the talking. So the first question I usually ask is, well, it's kind of a statement and a question. I'll say, tell me a little bit about your business and what's most important to you in a housekeeping partner. The reason this question is really good is because it gives you valuable information about their business, like how big it is. They might say, oh, we're a property management company. We've got 2 units, one in Austin, one in Dallas, and we're trying to grow the business, but we haven't figured out the housekeeping process yet. We've hired cleaners in the past, and usually they start off well, and then they become unreliable, and the quality suffers, and they don't really text back right away. You might get something like that. I mean, every situation is going to be different, But you ask that question to give you valuable information about who they are and whether or not they fit in your target customer profile. So usually once you've asked that question, you get a little background, you're going to want to take some things that they've said and do a bit of more of an exploration into each thing that they said. So for example, if they say we've had issues with reliability in the past, you might say, well, what kind of reliability issues were there? Can you give me like a specific example? Because you really want the customer to verbalize and say and think about the problems that they've had in the past before you start presenting your solution. And I'll say, okay, so based on my understanding, you've had X, Y, and Z issue, and you're looking for a company that does A, B, C. Is that correct? And they'll say, yes, that's correct, or no, it's not correct, and then you'll want to elaborate further. Before you even talk about how your company works or what you do or what your pricing is, you want them to be thinking about the challenges that they've had in the past. And that's really important because you don't want them thinking about the price. In fact, if customers during this conversation, they're like, yeah, and then they just keep pushing you for price right off the bat before you even talk anything about your operations, that can be a big red flag. And usually in the past, those customers have turned out to be bad customers. So for me, when somebody pushes me on price right away without hearing me out and letting me do my exploration process, I usually decline to work with those customers. The third step is, now that you understand what the specific customer's pain points are, you're going to frame your service around solving those specific challenges. So usually at this point, I'll say, thank you for giving me the context. That really helps me. I heard that you said that reliability is really important to you. So just to give you context, Turned has done 20,000 cleanings and we've never missed a cleaning due to staffing issues. We make sure that we have enough staff trained and ready to clean your unit so that we never miss a cleaning. And so in this part, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you understand what differentiates you from the competition in this respect. Using the homeowner wants customization as an example, you could say the way that we ensure that those specific things are done each turnover is we create instructions for our team and we send the team reminders no matter who's going to the unit every time to make sure that the special instructions are done. That can be a way for you to stand out and say, look, I hear the challenge that you're saying, and hey, I've got a solution for that problem that you're telling me. So know what differentiates you with respect to solving the specific challenge that they're having. And so the last piece is you got to know your processes. It's really important when you are differentiating yourself and explaining how you're going to solve those customer pain points that you know how you're operationally going to execute on those things. And the customers in the call usually have really good BS detectors, and they're going to want to know how you're going to do the things that you say you're going to do. So if you say, hey, we have really good ability to customize cleanings, you need to have an operational process that you can explain to the customer about how you're going to do that. If you have, for example, Turn's case, a linen rental program where you provide all the linen and towels, you need to explain how that works and operationally how that's done and what results that's gotten for the customer in the past. Usually at this point, you're going to just have a conversation with the customer about how your business works. Once you've gone from identifying their needs, having them verbalize their needs, to explaining your differentiators and then explaining how you execute on those differentiators. So this is when you build credibility. And it's also when your customers are going to be asking a lot of questions about how your business works. If you've gotten to this point, you've done a really good job because you most likely have sold the customer on the value of what you provide, not on the price of what you're offering. So once this conversation is done and you feel like they have a good understanding of how their business works and you feel like you have a good understanding of what they need and how they operate, then you want to bring up pricing. So depending on your process, you can give them a quote on the spot, or you can tell them you'll give them a quote later. I try to give people a quote on the spot. I have a little calculator. And the reason I do that is because I want to hear their objections on the pricing right then. I don't want to hear it over email or just not hear from them again. Usually when I give the quote, there'll be like a pause or a silence because it's usually a larger number than they were expecting or what they were hoping for. And then they might say something like, oh, that's kind of a lot. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. And this is when you can tie the pricing back to the value that you've talked about earlier. So you can say, hey, I understand that we're not the lowest price option out there, but this pricing allows us to be a more reliable partner. It allows us to offer better quality control, it allows us to be great at what we do. We wouldn't be able to do that if we are at a lower price. And I usually I'm just transparent like a human with the customer. I say like, look, you can go find other options, but you're probably going to run into the same issues that you've had before. So it's up to you what's important to you. Generally, the customers at this point will be receptive and they'll want to work with us eventually. It might take them a week to like make a decision, but generally they work with us. If they ask for pricing earlier or you hit them with this price at the beginning of the conversation, they most likely will not be willing to pay it because they're not going to understand the value of what you provide and they're just going to be comparing you to the lowest price option. Okay, and lastly, a shameless plug for myself. I do work with other vacation rental cleaning businesses and help them scale to 7 figures and beyond. I tell them all about the issues that I've had as building my own business, and we work through their specific challenges. So if you're either starting or you've got an existing vacation rental cleaning business and you're looking for guidance, feel free to reach out to me at davismarkland.com and set up an intro meeting. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your business. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great day.